In this last section, we're going to just summarize and ensure that we know how to provide the absolute best ongoing facilitations of practice two. And how do we do that? First, we must understand the conceptual understanding of academic language, right? We must know that when we present the PBO, we're going to allow students to let us know how they feel about what it is we're about to do. That scale of 1 to 10, where are they, right? And then we're going to provide them that safe entry level, that safe learning environment, and then help them begin to break down whole word vocabulary, right? To understand that, to develop where they are to where we need them to be, regardless if they're 2 and 3 grade levels behind. We do that by integrating that mathematics related word parts component, helping them see the root word, the prefix or the suffix that might provide some meaning. That helps them to determine and experience through multiple opportunities what these words mean, right? And so then we get to the technical language of the symbols. And so as we begin to look, I thought to myself, well, I've got this sitting here on my desk. This is from the U.S. Department of Education, educators' practice on assisting students struggling with mathematics, intervention in the early grades. And what I noticed was mathematical language is recommendation 2. It's only second to what systematic instructional approach are we taking? And that is practice 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? And so we know that that mathematical language is of the utmost importance, right? And so as we begin to figure out ways or what are some prompts, here's an instructional leadership prompt for mathematics, practice 2. These are some great questions. What instructional strategies before instruction am I considering to promote vocabulary acquisition? Right? And so that's just one question. And so that's a 3-part question in question 1. What instructional strategies before instruction am I considering to promote vocabulary acquisition and use? Right? And so I began to think, well, obviously, intentional and strategic conversation maps, starting with the PBO. What's the vocabulary? Right? Are there symbols that go along with it? What's common everyday general language versus content specific? And so as I look at that first question before, we also have to consider during, right? We have to consider after we've given instruction. We have to consider what we have maybe already taught, what were some prerequisites, right? What vocabulary strategies might I use to support struggling learners like ELL or students with disabilities or students tier 2, tier 3 or EIP kids, right? What am I considering when selecting content specific vocabulary? I know many of us go, well, the PBOs are already done for us. They're already in the units of study. And so we still can't take that for granted. We really have to look and see, is this a blue or red word? Are there other words that I might need to help students unpack? Are there words within the definitions that I'm providing that I need to help students unpack? Right? And we only learn that by the conversations that we're having with students around what the words mean. And then finally, but certainly not least, what strategies might I use to build students' academic language? And I found this one very interesting because this strategies actually goes back full circle to the first one. And so those strategies before, during, and after instruction, right, to help us bridge, to help us build, and that build is a verb, right? How do I build throughout? How do I build on students before, during, and after instruction? Am I seeing progress? If I've been building a wall, then you come back, hopefully you see some difference in the wall. I hope that I'm not in the same place as I was before, if I'm truly building And so that helps us begin to see before, during, and after instruction. And so, again, I'm going to kind of end with this PBO here from 30A1. Interpret multiplication as equal, as creating those equal groups. And again, I've seen this, I've done this where we provide them the definition, right? And we tell them that multiplication is repeated addition, and we tell them that equal is exactly the same amount or same value. But what I encourage us to consider here is, how do we take the PBO and begin to chunk it apart? Students will be able to interpret multiplication as creating equal groups. Well, what are groups? Can groups be drawn on paper? Can groups be created with whole amount of Skittles? Can a group be a bag? Can it be multiple cups? Can it be multiple boxes? And getting students to see and understand that grouping really just means we are putting items in a group together. We're separating objects, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be that we pick them up and put them in a bag, or we pick them up and put them in a cup. Because conceptually speaking, that abstract layer, they're not ever going to do that. But the concrete level is where we have to start. And that's more of the practice 4 that we'll get to later. But this is how it all ties together, right? And so as we close here, remember our intentional and strategic conversation maps, answering these questions when we're looking at our vocabulary. How are we going to build students' understanding, their acquisition and their use before, during, and after instruction?